By the end of 1971, work was moving forward on the economic, technical, and legal aspects of the symbol selection. We made sure all proposals received equal treatment, no matter how big or small the company was. It was important to keep all symbol proposers in the mix and keep them working toward a solution, whether they be big companies or small companies, because really the symbol could come from anyone and we wanted to pick the best possible solution. During 1972, a lot of the planning came to fruition and much of the experimental work was underway. Store tests began, and anyone who was a store tester and also on the symbol selection subcommittee changed their status at that point. They became consulting members of the committee as opposed to voting members of the committee. We tried to keep the 4+4 retailers and manufacturers distribution there with new members if necessary. But if you began to test, you became a type 2 member or a testing member and sat in on most of the deliberations. There were times when we had only the type 1 members there when some decisions were made that we did not want public. During 1972, store testing began on a much larger scale. The Battelle testing also began as hardware suppliers shipped equipment into Columbus, Ohio to Battelle to be tested. And Battelle began to look at reject rates on the symbols, undetected error rates, which was a real problem if they were significant, equipment and print quality, and the other requirements to help the decision be made on a quantitative basis. We wanted quantitative measures because we knew this had to stand up in front of a rather large audience. It turns out that most of the quantitative work, while it justified the implementation of the U.P.C., was supplemented in the long run by the qualitative or soft savings. So we were looking at hard savings to justify it, but we knew there would be soft savings out there. What we totally underestimated at the time was the value of the marketing information or soft savings, which has become a rather dominant factor in the use of the U.P.C. in later years. We also looked at productivity issues. At the time, there was the concept of the natural bottom going across the scanner, which would allow the productivity to be as high as possible. Turns out that was not nearly as important in the long run as scanners began to look from multiple directions and find these symbols much easier than if they just were on the required to be on the natural bottom. We also looked at print quality very seriously at that point and used a product called the Pictorial Information Dissector and Analyzer System, or PIDAS, P-I-D-A-S, which was used by Battelle to measure a large number of off-the-shelf grocery items and to check the quality of what was out there. They picked certain letters like a T in net weight, where they would be able to compare the quality across a large number of products that were purchased in the grocery store were off the shelf. Therefore, they were real-life quality measures. Additionally, during '72, MIT agreed to review the work that we were doing and to evaluate if the committee had missed any issues or technologies. We felt this was important to show that we had looked at all possible known combinations. And if there was something out there that was not being proposed that should have been, we needed to know that also. By October 5th of 1972, at our meeting, we had developed the final framework for the decision process. We were beginning to look at what items we needed on our big spreadsheets, looking at all the symbologies and all the items that we were looking at for each symbology. The initial results from testing companies were available, and we looked at those at our meeting on November the 14th of '72. 7 companies finally tested with Patel, and we were beginning to get the results. These tests depended heavily on checkers that Patel went out and hired, who were currently checkers in supermarkets, using, in most cases, electromechanical equipment. And we felt that by using checkers who had experience, we would be able to get a significant, realistic measure of what was going on and how the scanners were being used.